Okay. I think everybody can hear me. It looks like my little microphone thing for once is actually working, which is a miracle. All right, so let me share my screen. And here's the flowchart that we had been using. If you remember, it's different from regular Ethernet in a couple of really important ways. The first and most important thing is you can't detect collisions. You can only avoid them. But it actually turns out to be worse than that, because we're going to end up at the very end of the lecture going back to Ethernet, and I'm going to tell you now what I'm going to tell you then, which is you actually never listen for a collision. It's a little more subtle than that. All you really listen for is something other than what you're sending right now. So it's as if, you know, you lose your voice, you still can tell something's wrong, right? No one has to be saying something else in your ear. If you just start losing your voice, that's a problem. That's enough, because you can no longer hear what you're saying. So that's important because it's fundamental in understanding why we have to keep transmitting to detect a collision. With Wi-Fi, it's much more difficult because you can't guarantee that you can hear everything that's going on. And I told you guys the bubble gum analogy, right? If I want to give you a piece of bubble gum, I can either roll a gumball across the table and you get all but a few molecules, or I can chew it and blow a giant bubble until you only get a tiny little piece. So that's meant to represent the dispersion of energy in a wireless signal versus maintaining it in a guided media, like a cable, for example. So that's why it's hard for Wi-Fi to detect collisions, because it can't hear them all the time. Okay, so we're going to be coming back to this flow chart a lot, but we're going to use a, let's see what this says, caught an error. Okay, let me get over to the animation that I want. Somebody's, okay, let me, hold on here. Phew, okay, yes. Both of the first two homeworks are on Blackboard. The solution for the first one, I think, is maybe also up. I'm not positive about that. And the third one I will give you as some problems to practice for the test after today. Yes. All right. It's right here. Did I upload it in the wrong class? Probably. Oh, you know what I did? I only uploaded it to one of the sections. I bet that's what I did. Let's fix that right now. We'll just pause for a moment because I cannot mess that up. It just irritates me that I have to upload everything 3 times, but it's actually turned out to not be quite as bad as I thought, because I can like tell one group something without telling all the groups something, like we're going to start late, for example. I didn't really want to broadcast that out to everybody. I do not want to survey. Move my assignment. Yeah, it would be nice. Okay, so let's browse this and let's pick up Tareas. That looks right. It's 100 points. It's going to be due on Friday tomorrow, but we're going to do it in class together. So we'll leave here with it done. And you can submit 5 times if you want. Oh no, this thing is bugged, so I have to like go through this crazy circuitous deal. And I still don't think this is going to get it to you guys, because I think you're not this section either. Okay, May 31st. All right, I think that's right. Let's see what that does. And then one more course, this one down here. This one, I think, no, I think you can see it now. I think you're group 2. I take it back. You can? All right, awesome. So let me get group 3 in there. Homework 2. No. Homework 2. Do Friday. Paste that in. Browse. Attach. At least I'm fast at it. But we're going to get it, everybody in here. And we'll make it 100 points. And you can submit it multiple times. What's funny is when I go home, this site is crazy fast in Houston because it's closer to their data center, which is maximum attempts. Oh yeah, we'll do that. Let's be greater than. Okay, there we have it. Now, what about the solutions to one? Did I mess that up too? But yeah, it looks like I didn't give you that either. Okay, so let's give you that. No, I don't hate you. I love you. Okay, here it is. Solutions to homework number 1. And here, even. All right, back over to our simulator. Thank you very much for bringing that to my attention. That is not a cool thing. Okay, we're going to draw Wi-Fi 2 different ways. And one of them is going to, they're both going to be kind of unusual. One of them is going to be a little less realistic than the other. The first one we're going to do is build a Wi-Fi network where everyone can see everything everyone else is saying. Or, at the very least, everyone's in range. So, let's draw out what that looks like. So let's say I have an access point in the middle, and then I have another Wi-Fi device over here, and let's make a second one up here, and then finally a third one over here on the right. So what I want to do is draw circles to show the range of each of these transmissions, so we can kind of piece together what's going to happen. First of all, everyone's got to be within range of this red circle, or they can't connect to this Wi-Fi hotspot. They're too far away. So that one's easy. That one we've got. And if we assume these things are roughly the same size, then the rest of them are going to kind of look like this. They're going to have circles, and what I'm doing is intentionally making sure that none of them can see each other. All right, make sense? Okay, there's another way to do this. The other way to do it is similar, but in this case, whoops, I don't want to do that. In this case, I'm going to draw the circles first because I already have the circle tool up, and we're going to just try to figure out if this makes any sense afterwards. And then a red access point here right in the middle. So with this one, what's going on is we have the access point here, and then we have the 3 other devices. The green one is over here, the blue one is over here, and the gray one looks like it's kind of up here. All right, so these are all in the range of each other. And they're not too far away from each other as well, but it isn't going to help. You're still going to have trouble hearing collisions reliably. And so we're going to figure out why that is. So there's a homework problem that goes along with this. And if you pull it up, it's the one that we were just talking about. And it's got some images in it. I can't reproduce the images live for you guys because they're random, quasi-random. So we're going to go through the simulator first, learn what we need to learn, and then we're going to turn the homework problem and answer the questions with a slightly different image. Okay? So the first round we're going to go through this is the one without hidden terminals. When you can't see one of the other users that's connected to the same network as you, they are said to be a hidden terminal. The reason why they're called hidden is back from a project at the University of Hawaii called Project Aloha, where you had different campuses that were trying to use radio back to Oahu, to the main campus, to do IT networking. And you couldn't hear islands that were on the other side of Oahu. They were too far away. The biggest problem, however, was you could have 2 campuses on the same island that should have very well been able to hear each other, except you had this little thing of an active volcano between you, or a giant mountain of lava between you, cold lava. So that blocked your signal. So those were hidden terminal problems. So we've kept that terminology all this time. All right, so here's the simulator. What I'm going to do is start it up and zoom in on this thing. And it basically shows there are 3 stations and an access point, kind of like what we drew. And they show a available medium. No one's using it. It's libre, right? So the medium is free here in green. So if I want to send a packet, all I have to do is click on the name of the station. So I'm going to click. I just clicked on one, and we're going to take a look at what's going on here. So the time is obviously moving, to the right, and the newest things are to the left. They're just entering the picture, and the oldest things are exiting off the right-hand side. So the first thing that happened in the sequence was Station 1 sent a request to send. You see that? It's this color. And when he sent the request to send, you'll notice Stations 2 and 3 both noticed that the network was now busy. Because they weren't talking, and because Station 1 is within their range, they can hear that the network is now busy. And as soon as they hear a complete request to send, they now go, oh, all right, I get it. I now know why the network's busy. One has issued a correct request to send. And I'm just going to assume that it's going to make it to the access point, and the access point is going to give him permission. That's a little risky because I really don't know if it made it to the access point. There may have been a collision with somebody I can't hear, which interferes with one. It's all kinds of things I don't know, but that's the way it works. And so as soon as the request to send is finished, both of the other stations enter what's called nav mode, where the medium is considered busy. So they don't even wait for the access point to acknowledge receipt of this request. They just immediately go, I'll just wait for a while. I've missed my chance. Yeah. This up here or this down here? Yes. So this is just showing that it also detects that the network is busy. Because the way a transmitter on wired and wireless knows that the network's busy is they hear activity. So you always have to be listening at the same time you're transmitting. So the circuit that is listening happens to be separate from the circuit that's transmitting, and it notices that things are busy. And it doesn't cause any reaction from Station 1 because the part that's transmitting says, like, yeah, I know it's me. Thanks for nothing, right? So if it was someone else, like if it was sitting there listening and it saw the network go busy, the transmitter would go, oh, so that means I can't transmit then. Okay. So that's what's going on. All right, so there's a little pause after you send a request to send to allow any other signals to make it to the edge of the Wi-Fi network and back. And then the access point sends what? A clear to send. So this is your permission to transmit. That's all you need to hear. These are small packets. Station 1 can now begin transmitting data. When he's done, he pauses and an acknowledgement comes back. When the other guys see the acknowledgement, or there's a timer inside the request so that they don't just wait around forever, they will assume the network is once again free. And they see a little tiny tidbit at the end of red because they're checking to make sure when they thought it was going to end is really when it's wrapping up. So they kind of stay out of everybody's way. Yes? Well, the acknowledgement is sent by the access point, and the only way the access point has to get to anyone is by blowing a big bubble. So everyone's going to get touched by the bubble. You can't just send it to one person. Everyone gets a piece of the bubble, right? So think about it as ducks floating on a pond, and you're in the middle. You drop a rock in the water. Who's going to get the wave? Everyone. But you've got to have some way of signaling the one that you really want to pay attention to it. But that's kind of the wave propagation theory. Everyone's going to see it. All right. If it were only this easy. Yes. Correct. Yep, exactly right. So he gets it, and he's happy. So you'll notice he doesn't try to resend the packet again because he's satisfied that the access point received it. Okay, so let's keep going, and let's do something again. Let's do Station 1, and then I'll wait nicely until it's finished, and then I'll send one from Station 2. And now you see 1 and 3 can see that the network's busy, and I'll send one from Station 3. And 1 and 2 notice it's busy. Oh, wouldn't it be nice if everybody was like polite like that? So let's ruin it. Let's wreck this thing. So what I'm going to do is click Station 1, and then immediately, as fast as I can, move my little stylus, click Station 2. So click, click. And then we're going to stop and figure out what's going on. So it starts off the same, right? The other two stations, you know they're in range because they see the request to send being transmitted. They already have recognized the network's busy. and they will go into nav mode as soon as they get this eavesdrop on this thing, and they'll go, okay, it's gonna send something. While that's happening, somewhere maybe in here, Station 2's IP layer hands, this is all layer 2, hands layer 2 data that it wants him to send in an Ethernet frame via Wi-Fi. So it uses the same framing as wired Ethernet. Both of them are 802.11. 802. 802 anyway. All right, so while the network was already busy, he was asked to send something. So once the network becomes free again, he's not going to just send his request to send. He's going to enter this sort of gray bar mode. And if we go down and look, the gray bar is a countdown timer. So let's go back over to our flowchart and figure out what's going on. Is the channel free when I'm handed something to send? No, it is not. The channel is busy. So they've left off the details of what's happening right here, but what's happening is a random timer. So you can at least tell because it's a gray box at the very least. Thank goodness the colors match. That's a complete accident. It's not even the same authors, not even the same textbook. So we can convince ourselves that's what's happening by doing some more of this, 1 and 2. We'll do it again. So remember the size of this gray box here. This one is nothing. I'm going to do it again, 1, 2. I'm going to ignore that nothing one for a moment. And I'll try to actually recreate it again later. It's kind of hard, but we can do it. Okay, do you see the different sizes of the gray boxes? So why roll a random number? Why roll a number at all? Why not just wait till the network's free and just send your packet? Yeah, but who's they? Other stations? Do you agree? You're going to spread them out. Yeah, so here's the deal. While one is transmitting his packet, it could be that other people are waiting. And on a busy network, you would expect other people are waiting. What you don't want to have happen is as soon as the network's free, everybody dogpiles on the network because they're all going to collide with each other. So instead of doing that, everyone rolls a random number. They don't have any idea if they need to or not. They can't really hear collisions all the time, not reliably. So they're going to do this just to be safe. And funny things can happen sometimes. Something that can happen is while you're busy waiting for your random time, Station 3, who hasn't had anything to do so far, wakes up and decides he wants to send something, and he hijacks your network out from under you. Before your gray box is up, Station 3 can take over and start sending. Or the gray box was small and you did get a chance to send. But anything goes. You don't usually, even on a wired Ethernet network, if you collide with someone else and you do an exponential backoff, there's no statistical likelihood that you're going to collide with the same user again. You're just as likely to collide with anyone. So it's based on how busy the network is. That's really where the probability comes from. All right, so let's continue on. And this time I'm going to do all three. All right? So I'm going to go 1, 2, 3. Now, 2 and 3 are both going to roll a random number. In this case, 2's random number was smaller. So we start off, everybody sees it's busy, they both enter nav mode. When the acknowledgement comes around, they both roll a random number and wait for the network. They see that it's free, and they roll a random number. 3 was still using his timer when 2's stopped. 2 started to send, but 3 can see 2. So he sees the network go busy again. And so he goes, well, I've missed my chance. Right? I'm going to have to try again. So I don't know why the network's busy, but let's wait a second. Oh, it's busy because of a request to send. I guess I have to go back into nav mode again. And when the acknowledgement comes out the far end, then he can roll a random number. This time he's the only one waiting to send something. So his request goes out. The clear to send comes back from the access point. Everybody has entered nav mode again already, and he gets to send his packet. So it took him a couple of tries to send his packet. It can get worse. So let's continue on. 1, 2, 3, 2, 1, 2, 3, 2, 1, 2, 3, 2, 1, 3. You know, and so one thing I'll show you is over on the right, you can see how many are queued up. And every time they roll a random number, it's going to show you what the random number counter is left. So at the very end of this network, station 2 is in a back off of 4, it looks like. Okay, so what we notice is there's been some transmission allowed, but this thing is really kind of a mess. All right, so let me ask some questions about some of this. Let's come here and get up a new screen. There we go. And zoom this thing up a little bit and move it over. Okay, let's talk about what's happening in this diagram a little bit. So what's happening right here? 1, 2, and 3 all have gray boxes, and they all look like they're pretty well lined up. What's going on? Well, all 3 have data to send. You know that, or you wouldn't be entering this random mode. And they rolled random numbers. Do we know how big of a number 1 and 3 rolled? Exactly. You at least know that it's bigger than 2. Okay, could they roll the same random number? Sure. In fact, if we play around with this for a minute, you'll see it. All right, so 2 wins. He gets to send his request. Then the acknowledgement's done, so 2 gets to mark another packet off. Mission accomplished. What happens here? Talk to me about what's going on at the next round. Yeah, so who does? 1 and 3 have the same random number. How do you know that? Well, but that's a stronger argument, I think, right? So they both send a request to send, and they shouldn't do that. We know they can hear each other, unless they've moved around. But we know they can hear each other, and so one of them should never have started after the other one began. So the only way both of them really begin at the same time is if they began almost at exactly the same moment, or close enough to the same time. So what does the access point receive resulting from this pair of transmissions? What does it interpret is going on? Yeah, say it. Put a word to that. Just garbage. Right? We don't know what's going on. We don't know that it was 1 and 3 trying to send a request to send. If we knew that, we could figure out that we pick one. All we know is that there's something that we don't recognize, but we have no idea what it is. And so this is a really critical point with protocols. And we talked about it in 2018 if you had me, and we'll talk about it a few times now. It's very easy to fall into the trap because you can see what's happening when you're studying these things on both sides, to believe that the server or the client knows something about what's happening at the other end. It never knows anything about what's going on at the other end of the connection, ever. The only thing it knows is what it's receiving and what its reactions are supposed to be. The protocol will dictate that. So there's no way for the access point to know that 1 and 3 were sending requests to sends. It just didn't really get anything. So what does it do as a reaction? Yeah, one thing it doesn't do is it doesn't send a clear to send. So you'll notice the clear to send is usually like right after the request to send. In this case, there's nothing. There's no clear to send. Okay, what are 1 and 3 doing at this point? So they don't roll it right away, though. You notice there's a gap here? So why is there a gap? Let's go look at the flow chart. If I don't get an acknowledgement received or a clear to send received before a timer goes off, I go into this random back off wait mode. So I'm going to give the access point some time to get back to me. So we're going to wait around, and lo and behold, 2 takes full advantage of this, because while these guys are snoozing, waiting on a clear to send to come that's never going to arrive, 2 sees that the network's free, rolls a random number, and starts to send. And he got a little bit lucky because the random number was long enough that it exhausted this wait window, and both 1 and 3 started random timers again. And so one of them could have rolled a 0, but he got lucky, and he got to send first. So these 2 guys see the network's busy, they go into nav mode. What's going to happen after this? Everybody has lots of packets to send. So what do you think is going to happen next? So will 2's packet be delivered successfully, do you think? No one's going to try to interfere, speak on top of it because they're in nav mode, right? All right, so let's move along a little bit. You're going to get an acknowledgement back. Everyone has a packet to send. It holds a random number. 2 wins again. 1 and 3 are beginning to get irritated at this point. And this guy has tried 1, 2, 3, 4. I would love to stretch this thing out, but it won't do it any wider than this. So they have another one again. Finally, 3 gets 1. 1 is not feeling any love at all. 2 gets another one. Still 1 is not sending something. Now it's back to 3 again. And now, you got to be kidding me. Now 2 and 3 transmit at the same time. And so 1 hops on it. Finally takes advantage of it. So why didn't 1 here go into nav mode? Remember, sometimes when you're waiting around and somebody else starts to transmit their request to send, like happened over here, you immediately enter nav mode. That's what happened here, and that's what happened here. They heard 2 send his request to send, and as a courtesy, they assumed he was going to start in a moment, and so they entered nav mode. So why didn't 1, when he saw his request to send being broadcast, why didn't he enter nav mode? Well, but it starts, look at the timing. Here's the clear to send. It actually starts right before. So you can argue that that's not smart, okay? That I can make a great argument why that's not a great idea. I would probably lose it with somebody that was a double E because they could probably tell me. But they actually do enter nav mode just after hearing the RTS. They don't even wait to see if the access point's going to grant them permission. They just assume someone's going to get permission. They got there first. So why didn't they enter nav mode here? There is, for sure, but there's a simpler explanation in this particular case. What is it that 1 heard exactly? Garbage. 2 and 3. He heard the same thing the access point heard. Garbage. The access point also didn't get anything intelligible. That's why he didn't send a clear to send. And 1 never would send a clear to send. That's not his job. That's the access point's job. So what does he do? He just ignores the garbage, sees the network's free again, doesn't have a nav mode to hold him up, should have, but didn't. And so he begins to do his transmission, and everyone sees it. Right? So it's a really good tool. I mean, this really helps you learn exactly what's going on, and it's even got some, crazy stuff that happens at the same time, including people doing things at once. All right, so let's go to the homework, and let's see if we can answer the questions based not on the one that we've been playing with, which is random and live, but we're going to do it based on this one instead. Okay. I'm sorry it's a little fuzzy, but that's because I pasted it into Word. All right, I gave you the link to the simulator. If you want to play with it over the weekend, good idea. All right, so in this diagram, when I take a peek at sort of what's going on here across the entire picture, who has managed in this picture to send data? Do you guys agree with that? Yeah, he's sent a request to send, but has he sent his data yet? He's about to. He's about to. So 1 and 2 have already sent data. Yes. Yeah.
Once we see the round up,
Yes.
do we actually take it was sent or until we get the acknowledgement?
Only when you get the acknowledgement. And you're going to see. And the sender will not agree that it was sent either. It will also realize that it wasn't sent. And that's going to happen in a minute when we hide terminals from each other. You're going to see that example. It's actually kind of cool. So this is easy. That one's harder. Okay, so 1 and 2 send packets. Does 3 have something to send? Well, that's what you just said, right? You said yes. How do you know? And the clear to send, the request to send after it. But the random number is enough. If this thing had cut off and I didn't see the blue, you would be right. Your answer would still be the random number only is going to show up when 2 things are true. You have something to send, and the network was busy when you tried. If the network's not busy when you try, no need for a random number. So take a look at 1 at the very beginning. He had something to send. The network was free, so he just started. No gray box. All right, and we saw some other examples a minute ago where 1 and 2 had to wait, and 3 just kind of slipped in. You know, it took over the network because it decided it had something to send when the network was free. Okay, so good answer. Hers is correct also because you can see that it's trying to request. Okay, why did 3 enter the random backoff mode? What 2 conditions were true? Yes. Yeah. Okay, sure. So does 3 have something to send? Yes. How do you know? Because he's trying. In fact, there's lots of hints on here that he's trying to send something, right? The first hint that he had something is right here. The network finished its first data transmission, and he entered this random backoff mode. He wouldn't do that if he didn't have something to send. And then he did it again. He still has something to send. And he did it again. And this time, he was able to send his request to send. So all of these things are proof that he's trying to send something. He's trying, just like he said. So why do we do that? When we why is that the sign for? Is it? I mean, why that though? It's like, what a strange body motion. I don't imagine people all over the world do that. It doesn't seem like the natural. This one I get, right? So that seems kind of natural. Just slapping, because people get slapped when they do stupid stuff, like moms around the world. Yeah, what did you do? Right? Okay. Why did 3 enter the random backoff mode? Why didn't 3 just try to send his request to send? The network was free. So why did he wait this gray bar? Why did he wait? What 2 conditions are true? Well, the network was busy when he tried, so he was in nav mode, and he had something to send. So you're only going to be going into this random backoff mode if you have something to send, and the network was busy when you tried. That's what you guys are saying. That's correct. The network was busy when you tried. When you tried to send something, you looked at the network and it was ocupado. All right? So, how many times did Station 1 require to do what it needed to do? 1 for each, twice. Both of those are correct answers. All right? Station 1, how many times did Station 1 have to try to send his 2-day packets? And what the people in some people in the class said is 1 each, a total of 2 times. They tried once and successfully sent their first packet. They tried a second time and successfully sent the second packet. You guys agree? All right, me too. Okay, how many tries did Station 2 require? Yeah, so twice for the first packet, and we can see a 3rd try. So how many tries do you know are going to be required? At least 3?
No, at least 4.
Exactly. At least 4. Do you see the 4th? He tried once here, He tried a second time, and he succeeded. Now, do you remember what she said a minute ago? That you can tell 3 was going to send something by just the gray box? Here's where that helps us answer this question. The fact that he tried the gray box means he has something else to send, and the network was busy when he did it. Did he get to successfully send his request to send? No, because 3 did. So he's going to try a 4th time. We can't see it. So we know 2 is going to have to send at least 4 tries. You can, because it's past tense. That's fine with me. Right? I just want you to understand what you're saying, that's all. So the question is, I asked how many did station 2 require, past tense, and so far it required 3, it will require a 4th one in a minute. So either one's fine as long as you understand why you would say 3 and why you would say 4. I won't count it wrong. If it's not clear on the exam, if it's confusing, answer either way that makes sense, and I'll count it right. You do not have to come up and verify verb tenses with me during the test. So whichever one makes sense, you can answer that way, and I'll take it. I'm looking to see if you understand the concept. I'm not looking to see if you get the same number that I do. You guys get different answers all the time, which is why it's murder having Becca's grade homeworks in network class, because they take it like it's chiseled in stone by Moses from God and a tablet or something, and it's got to match exactly, or you're not going to get the points. So I have to go back in, pad and try to do some things like that. So I'm going to try to manage that better this time. But if you get assassinated on a homework score, come talk to me. Okay. All right. 3 acknowledgments are shown down at the bottom. At the bottom of the screen. See them? The access point sends 3 acknowledgments. Who are they for? Yeah, great. Station 1 and 2. Station 1, Station 1, and Station 2. If you want to be super picky, you can say the first acknowledgement is for the first packet for Station 1. The second acknowledgement is for the second packet for Station 1. And the third acknowledgement for the first packet of Station 2. If you want to be like super, yeah. You could also just say Stations 1. Or Station 1, Station 1, Station. That's fine as well. All right? Do you guys understand that? That's all I'm trying to get across, is that you understand. Okay, who had something in queue to send at the start of the window? Oh, did I skip right past one? I sure did. Thank you very much. I forgot to change images. Hold on a second. I messed up. Not so fast. My boss used to tell a joke. He used to always say, all of those of you with a job, step forward. Not so fast, you and you. So this is his way of being funny when the company was laying people off. Yeah, not funny. Not that funny. Well, he wasn't laying people off. He would just, yeah. Yes, it is. It's, what is it that Mark Twain said? It's not how well you do in life that really matters. It's how poorly the other person does. Isn't that just like the most negative thing? Gore Vidal was even worse. Gore Vidal said, success is not enough. Others must fail. So that's 2 biting, sarcastic English authors. Okay, so here's the beginning of this window. And the question is, who had something in queue to send at the start of this window? And not Station 3? Why not? Yeah, but that's what's happening over here at the end. Okay. Convince each other. I'm not telling you the answer. Inicialmente, en la lado derecha. Sí, exacto. Y mira la línea aquí. Todos los 3 tuvieron cajas gris. ¿Verdad? El pasado, tiempo pasado. Okay. No puedo parar exactamente donde quieres. Okay. Make sense? So you see this problem again? Two guys sent at the same time. So let's see who can answer this one. Who has the smallest random number, the smaller random number, 1, 2, or 3? As part of this initial, these 3 gray boxes. Yeah. Why do you think station 3 had the smallest random number? Yeah, it's the gray box. But if here's the way the random number works. Once your random number counter is expired, then you can send a request to send. And so he had a small random number, but he never got to send his request to send because his timer was stopped prematurely. He noticed the network was busy again, and he went, I missed my chance. So he stops, even counting down. He just stops trying, and he's going to wait until the network's free. What's interesting about this is 1 and 2 had they had the same number, which is really kind of interesting. Only one person can send a request to send at a time, but they both sent it at the same time because they both rolled a random number. They both started speaking. So let me ask you this. They can hear each other, right? We have the diagram where all 3 circles are, like this. They all overlap. So if 1 can hear 2 and 2 can hear 1, why didn't they stop transmitting immediately their request to send as soon as they heard just even 1 bit coming from the other computer? Why didn't they stop? Why did they continue to send their whole request to send? In fact, they never figured out that the other guy was talking because they're waiting on a clear to send. They think they sent their request, and now they're waiting on a response that's never going to come from the access point. So the access point knows that nothing happened. Station 3 knows that nothing happened because he didn't enter nav mode. But station 1 and 2, the 2 culprits, never figured it out. Why not? Why not? They can't detect the collision. But why can't they detect it? So think about the difference between rolling the table as a way to get the other person some gum and blowing a giant bubble of bubble gum, and they're only going to get a tiny piece, right? The rest of it's wasted. Even if you're right next to the Wi-Fi hotspot, your signal degrades orders of magnitude immediately as soon as you send. So even though he's listening, he's drowning himself out. This is like Juan Gabriel in Palacio de Bellas Artes singing at the top of his voice, and a mosquito is buzzing near his ear. Is he going to hear it? Maybe not. Probably not. With the speakers and everything, even though it's close to him, because he's so much louder than the mosquito. All right? Now, what if he's not saying anything at all? He's home sitting in a chair and the mosquito starts to come up and buzz. You're going to hear that, right? Yeah, you'll probably slap yourself or something. Okay, so that's why the access point heard the garbage. He was not talking. This is why 3 heard the garbage. He was also not talking. They both realized that there was some activity, but it was not anything they recognized. So he didn't enter nav mode. He never sent clear to send. So they think it happened. They can't tell there was a collision. This is the fundamental problem. And this is when they're close together. They can't hear the collision. So what happens is they both finish. They are both waiting on a timer, and 3 gets the floor. He gets to try. Yeah.
So I assume that it's limited to milliseconds.
It's limited to microseconds probably, but there are windows where, because it's a continuous waveform, you're waiting on thresholds to be passed and for power to accumulate beyond a certain threshold before your confidence is raised high enough to conclude there's a 1 or a 0. You can send your way. And so you'll accumulate the stuff and basically adjust confidence filters and use different radio frequencies to get the best signal-to-noise ratio you can. You're constantly searching around because there's always noise. And there's also multipathing, which is copies of the signal that are arriving at the Wi-Fi hotspot a picosecond later because my bubble's going out everywhere, and some of the signal bounces off the glass and goes right back to the Wi-Fi hotspot again. Here, and the whiteboard, and the floor, and who knows what else. So 20 copies of my signal in a continuous discrete form all show up as a single energy waveform. So it is really a miracle that this stuff works to me. And I do not understand exactly how it works. It's too deep and doubly, and I have to get a degree. Yeah. Salud. It can do some encoding to figure out it's from the same transmitter, but it can't separate the various signal streams. So you're hoping that things show up close enough together that it cuts off the edges of your confidence, but there's a bump in the middle that's still strong enough that you're willing to conclude what to do, make one, make two, etc. And the 2018, the Kuro's book, shows you how this is done. I don't think this one does. So we may go back to that book and take a peek at it after the exam, because it's kind of fun to see exactly how they do it. There's some really clever stuff, because at the same time you're doing that, everyone else is transmitting as well, and they all come in on the same one antenna. So you've got to try to separate everyone's signals out from each other. So one of the ways you do it is by spreading them out amplitudinally. And anyway, off the topic a little bit. So 1 and 2 has small random number. 3s must have been bigger because he gave up. He was still counting down when he heard something else. 3 got the floor. So who has the smaller random number? You guys said 1 and 2 were tied, right? Okay. We know 3 did not roll the same number because or you can just say it stopped. It gave up. I'd take that. It stopped its timer because it saw the network was busy. Okay, which request to send out of these 2 up here, or maybe you can add any of them, which one does he choose? He doesn't choose, yeah, you're right. He doesn't choose 1 or 2. He eventually chooses 3. He doesn't choose 1 or 2 because he never got a clear request to send. He got garbage. That's kind of what I'm looking for there, right? So he received a bad signal. He never got an RTS. So interesting thing is microwave ovens also use the same frequencies as Wi-Fi, and so do cordless phones, cellular phones. And so sometimes you can have interference. Ooh, salud. You can have interference without any other Wi-Fi device doing anything. It just can happen. I have not seen that. Send me a link if you can. But spread spectrum technology and spectrum hopping technology has been around for a little while, and it's what lets these devices move out of harm's way when they figure out, this is not working. My signal-to-noise ratio is going down, and so I need to move to another frequency. There are licenses issued by our governments for people to use frequencies, but only when the primary license holder isn't using them. So NASA has a bunch of frequencies they use to communicate with spaceships, the shuttle, things like that. They still hold on to them, but they don't use any of the shuttle ones anymore, obviously, because they're not flying shuttles. So other people can come in and use those frequencies as long as the minute they hear someone else using it, they stop. And it doesn't matter who. They don't wait to figure out, is it NASA or is it somebody else with a router? They'll give them a license so they know there shouldn't be anyone else around except the primary license holder. So we get really clever with this stuff now. Okay, and 3 didn't go into nav mode. Why didn't he go into nav mode here? Why did he just enter busy and then just go right back to green again? He never got anything that told him that he needed to go into nav mode. He never saw a request to send. Over here, these guys see a request to send, they both go into nav mode. Here, they both see his request to send, they both go into nav mode. But here they don't. Here they saw his request to send and they both went into nav mode here as well. But down here, 3 just stopped. He did not enter nav mode because he never saw a clear request to send. He got garbage instead. Right. So taking a peek, zooming in at this one little spot here, who has something to send at the time of this arrow? Wow, I wished I hadn't like written all over this now. Okay. Let's zoom it back up and clear it out. Okay, so what I'm basically asking is, at this time here, who has something to send? Only station 3?
I think all 3 of them, but 2 of them think they have it.
Well, what's the gray bar for then? You want to. Yeah, you want to. Right, so they still have something. Now you can use your little cheat that you used a minute ago. Now you can look at the queue and see you have each of these. Okay, question E. All right, so let's go back up to E and take a peek here. Well, it's a good cheat. I'd use it. Like, why not? Okay, which request to send does the access point choose? And we were talking about at the beginning. And our answer that we decided was he doesn't choose either one because these things collide with each other, and what the access point receives down here is some sign of signal, but it's not a clear request to send. So he doesn't choose either one of them to respond to. He just does nothing. He just saw like a glitch on the network. You could say also, well, he chose 3 afterwards, but what I really want to know is why didn't he choose 1 or 2? Because what arrived at the access point was garbage, and it's clearly what arrived at station 3 as well because he didn't enter nav mode. Right, making sense? All right. Why didn't 1 and 2 show they're in a random time interval? So this is right here at the very beginning. I think I gave you guys the wrong time. I drew the line in the wrong spot, didn't I?
Oh, yes,
it's right over here, isn't it? Yeah. Sorry about that. I will give you a picture like this and ask you some questions like this. Yes, they look exactly. Okay, so I've asked every other class if anyone's colorblind. So what I'll do is add patterns to it for you. Okay? Yeah, and you may be able to figure out, because if you can see the density of this gray and the blue that they use is significant enough that you'll probably be able to see that. What kind of color blindness do you have? Okay. Okay. All right. So I do. Yeah. So the problem is, of course, they alternate between green and red for whether the network's busy. Of course, down here on these bars. So it's like, give me. What can you see in this changer? Can you see? Okay, so we'll make sure you can kind of. Yeah. Okay, I hear you. Well, the good news about this is the greens are always small, but they're not always smaller than the reds. Sometimes they're bigger. So we'll have to make sure we. Yeah, but why? But that's harder. That's not fair. That's not fair to him. So what I would rather do is like switch to a hash, diagonal line. I've done this for people before. You have 400 students every year, and you've got colorblind students. So totally doable. Okay, so back to the zoom in. I drew the line in the wrong place. So let's re-ask the question. My question was, at this time here, where I've drawn this line, who, looking across this diagram, who still has stuff to send? Well, 3 has something to send. because he tried here and he didn't get to send it. So, you know, he's got something coming up, right? What about 1 and 2? Do they still have something to send? They still do because they're not trying right now. Well, unintentionally they sent garbage, but they're trying. They have something to send. Yeah, trying. They're trying. Okay. All three have something to send. Why didn't 1 and 2 show they're in a random interval? I mean, they're waiting for what? Exactly. They're waiting on a clear to send, and they think they are waiting. You know, they believe that they're waiting on something. They don't know there was a collision. Juan Gabriel versus the mosquito. Right? Remember, if you don't like Juan Gabriel, I'm going to take your Mexican card away from you. So lots of people don't like Juan Gabriel. So I'm actually kind of teasing a little bit. I had 2 chances to see him, and I like most music. I don't really. The only person I really don't like is Cher. I can't really. Country and Western is not my favorite. Yeah. So, but some of it I like a lot. So, who knows? I've almost got a music degree instead of a computer science degree. Yeah. Yeah. Lots of computer scientists. I have a big career too. Yeah. So, and I like most kinds of music. I played in a symphony for many years on the weekend team. Well, I'm enjoying learning lots of Latin music these days. So reggaeton is pretty fun. Plus, it teaches me all the words that. It's really easy in the United States because they bleep out all the bad words. So all I have to do is sit down with the letras for, like, you know, someone and listen to the songs and just mark the words that they bleep out and then go back and look them up. Like, you know, Feliz y los Cuatro. There's nothing dirty about that. Like, what is? I have to ask around a little bit and go, okay, I get it now. So, yeah. So, you know, you got to learn somehow. You're not going to learn that. And I went to Mexico City 70, 80 trips for work before I started teaching here. And my friends were telling me, like, don't you dare come back talking like a Chilango. And so I finally bought this dictionary at Stanford called the Chilanginario. It's like a diccionario, but for Chilango. It's really funny. And it's mostly clean. It's sold. Yeah, exactly. Quesadilla sin queso. Yeah, I know. And they all, their comeback is always, why don't you order a pollo violado someplace? You know, like, okay, are we gonna have like a big food fight now, like arguing over stuff? One battle I did win with my Mexico City friends is they tried to get me to eat stuff that they thought would gross me out and like prove I couldn't be a Chilango, like escamoles, for example. And so I warned them, I told them some of the stuff I grew up eating, and then I would bring it for them to eat, and it stopped. Instantly stopped. They fell for it. Okay, now we're going to move to the other simulator. Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. Not torturously spicy, but as long as it's not going to kill me, I can do it. I love spicy food. Okay, so here's the second part of the exercise. We're doing okay on time. We're doing great on time. This one has what are called hidden terminals. So none of these stations can hear each other, but they can all hear the access point. They have to be able to hear the access point, or they can't belong to this network. But it's going to get interesting because nobody can hear what's going on. So I'm going to start it off just the same way we did before. Make sure I don't have more chat stuff that I'm ignoring.
The first one, the last one, they could also chart. This one,
yeah, so let's see what happened. I could not hear question E. Okay, hopefully. So what was it on E? Let me make sure I completely nail it down. They didn't choose the access point because the access point never received one. It received garbage. They both spoke at the same time. The access point couldn't interpret it. All right, now we switch to the other simulator. It has another URL, and the URL is in the homework. So what I'm going to do is send something from station 1, and my claim to you is this is all you need to recognize that we're using internal simulator. Right here on this diagram, you have everything you need to prove to yourself that these stations can't hear each other, or at least 2 and 3 cannot hear 1. What am I seeing that makes me convinced of that? If they can't hear each other, what on this diagram proves that? There's no gray, but even before that, they don't go into nav mode when they get their request to send. In fact, you'll notice, even notice the network's busy. It's still green. It's still green while 1 is trimmed. So the access point doesn't have a colored bar. The access point knows that the network's busy, but 2 and 3 do not. So this is dangerous, because 2 and 3 could start transmitting at any moment. They think the network's free. They don't see that it's busy. So why do they see the network's free here? Exactly, because everyone can hear the access point. If they can't hear the access point, they don't belong to this network. They're not connected to that SSID. They're not on the internet. So when the access point talks, everybody hears it. So they all 3 hear the request to send. Station 1 says, fantastic, I can start transmitting data. Station 2 and 3 go, oh, he asked to send something? I never heard it, I'm sorry. So, but I know you did because I see the access point just gave you permission. I will enter nav mode, but it's a shorter nav mode. Yeah, but you have to be polite, right? You can be a jerk and clobber everybody all the time, and you'll get shunned off to another channel, initiated off the network. And we'll see some packets on Wireshark of that happening. Okay, and then the acknowledgement comes back. Everyone hears the acknowledgement because it comes from the access point. Everyone's happy. We move along. All right, so let's go back and see what else we can stir up with this. I'm going to go 1, 2 this time. So I click super fast. What? Oh my gosh, look at this. So, you know, this is random. These are just random deals. This one's probably too hard. I should probably erase it, but it's so interesting. I've never seen it before. So let's see what's going on here. 1 starts to send, correct? And let me make a picture of this so we can draw on it, because we want to mark this one up. This is like classic for the ages, the mother of all traces. All right, let's go up here and start at the top. All right, so I'm going to paste this guy in. It's already nice and big. Okay. So the first thing that happened was 1 had something to send, and he began to transmit his request to send. Was he able to successfully deliver this request to send to the access point? No. Why not? The other one started to send right in the middle of his. So what did the access point actually receive? Trash. The first part of what he thought was a request to send, and then it turned to garbage, and then he got the last part of another request to send. So among other things, you might want to have some serialization. So you give unique serial numbers or encryption keys to these guys, so you don't accidentally put the first half of one guy's request with the second half of the other guy's request, and somehow manage to do that. All right, correct. So they both are doing what during this time right here? Not yet. Not yet. They wait for what? They wait for the clear to send to come back because they believe they sent their request to send. So they're going to set a timer and wait for the clear to send to come back. It never comes back. and they're going to go back into this random mode. Okay, so this is a forced random mode. This is not a random mode that comes from those two situations being true. Yes, they have something to send, but the network was not busy when they looked. So that is not why. This time they did it because of the flowchart. The flowchart said, wait. So the same stupid thing happens again. The access point doesn't hear either one of them. They wait, their timer goes off. They both try the same thing again, and they corrupt each other one more time. I mean, this, like, what are the odds of this happening? Well, apparently they're not zero because we're staring at it. And they roll bigger numbers. You notice these numbers are getting bigger and bigger and bigger. Now, these could still be small, because the only thing that's really getting bigger is the range from which you must pick. So if I first have to pick a range that looks like this, I pick a point in that, then I pick a point in this, then I pick a point in this. It's certainly possible that I pick a point here the first time, and I pick this point the second time, and I pick this point the third time, and it would look like they're getting smaller, not bigger. But, you know, over time, and with a little bit of luck here, we can see that, you know, if they picked in the middle, this is probably what it would look like. So finally, this guy got to send his by himself, and he got a clear to send back, and he's going to start sending his data. So if we go over there, we can let him continue on sending his data. Now 2 tries to send something again. He has success, and we're done. What happens if I send station 2 twice? Click, click. I clicked on station 2 times. It's not going to interfere with himself, but he rolls a random number. Why did he roll a random number here? It's the same reason, right? Because both things were true. He had something to send, the network was busy, so therefore he doesn't want to pile on with everybody else at the same time. So he rolls a random number. It's the same situation. Somebody else might be trying to send at the same time. All right? So let's make it a little more interesting and go 1, 2, 3, 2, 1, 2, 3, 2, 1, 2, 3, 2. And we're going to see what happens. Hell happens. So everybody conflicts with everybody else at the beginning. This guy ends up waiting his time for a clear to send that doesn't come, rolls a random number, and he gets to send one. So everybody entered nav mode. Why did 2 and 3 enter nav mode here?
Because it got that acknowledgement by everyone can be busy.
How did they know the network was busy? Who sent something that made them see exactly, right? Clear to send, right? So you guys all got it, right? I heard the right answer lots of different ways. So they finally heard the access point send something. That's when they went into nav mode. All right, makes sense? Then they also have something to send because I clicked a bunch of times on here. In fact, we can look over. They've 2, 6, and 3. They've got, and look at the backoffs now. Like, really, the numbers are getting big. Okay. Because, like you said, it's like hell out there. The backoff is the random number that's left, and it counts down. Watch this number over here as I resume. Watch all 3 of them. They just count down immediately. Just counting down to 0. So as fast as they can. Okay, so 1 got to send something, got acknowledgement. Everybody tries to send something again. Everybody collides with each other again. And they wait for a clear to send. They roll a random number. They collide with each other again. They roll bigger random numbers. 1 and 2 collide with each other again. And then 2 and 3 collide with each other. Geez. Now, what's going to happen eventually if this keeps up is the network is going to, these stations are going to send a message back up to IT that says network unavailable. Because you don't do this forever. You'll do it for 15 times on an Ethernet and some number of times on Wi-Fi, but you'll eventually give up. 1 finally got to send something here. Yes?
This is happening because they cannot hear each other?
Exactly.
Yeah. So when you send
it's happening more often because they can't hear each other. We saw some of this happen even on the one where they could. You can roll the same random number and try to send a request to send at the same time. No. The access point's the only one that needs to hear it. Because the other one you can hear, if you're not talking, you can hear the network go busy, and you will not try to send. On this one, you can't hear the network go busy all the time, so you will try to send if you have something. So that extra little amount of time where you can send versus can't, that's the difference between the two, and that's what causes all these extra problems. Just that little extra money, because these packets are small. You know, you have to move fast to collide with someone. These requests and clear to sends are tiny packets. So you have to like send at exactly the same time to overlap with the person. They only last a millisecond or something, or even less than that. So that's why we use these and ask permission. What some Wi-Fi managers will do is they turn this off. They turn off request to send, and clear to send. And they go, you know, the packets will just, the same problem will happen if we just let send packets. You know, they'll just start sending data and just see what happens. See if they get an acknowledgement back out of it. If they don't, something happens, they just keep trying again. So statistically, if your network is not so busy, you may be better off doing that and just getting rid of all this. But on busy networks, you want to reduce the odds by asking for permission as quickly as possible to minimize your chance that someone's going to talk over you, because you know they can't all hear you. So if you're going to stick your head up out of the foxhole in the middle of a war and see if the other guy's there, you want to do it fast to minimize the chance you're going to get shot. Right? If you stick it up and you look around for a while, you're asking for it. Right? Okay. So these two guys finally hear a request to send acknowledgement, the clear to send coming back. They both stop. One sends. Everybody still has stuff to send. One gets lucky again, rolls a small random number. Everybody hears it. Here's another thing that's evidence of what we were talking about. You notice before, whenever they would hear the network go busy, they would stop their random timer. You notice here they don't stop their random timer until the clear to send comes back. They don't stop it here. On the other simulator, they stopped it right here. But they can't hear it this time. They're listening, but they can't hear it. They're too far away. So they don't stop their random timer. So there's danger. Their random timer could have gone off, and they could start sending right in here. So this is a problem right here. You're lucky that it didn't happen. We continue on. Things settle down a little bit. We're actually getting some packets through. 1 and 1, 3, and 3 again, and 3 again. And 3's done. 2's rolling like the world's largest random number for no good reason. And he finally gets to send something, and he sends something again. He's back down to small random numbers again. He sends something again. So this thing finishes up. Everybody, he's got 3 more to send, 2 more to send. So let's see if we can go answer the questions. You want to? Yeah. All right. Here's that. Here's this. So I'm going to copy my image, paste it over here. I'm going to blow this up. Okay. So first question, what's the first thing you do that's different in one of these hidden terminal simulations? Well, I would use the word hear instead of listen, but I would agree with exactly that, everything you said. Only the AP can hear the other two. They're all listening. They just can't hear each other, right? So the evidence I see, if I wanted to like circle it on the exam, for example, I would just point out that even though 1 is transmitting, 2 and 3 still think the network is free. They are still sending green here and here. All right? So that's how I know something's different is going on. What causes them to realize that the network is indeed busy? You guys agree? Do you hear that? You want to give me your version of the answer? Why? What causes stations 2 and 3 to finally realize the network is busy? In general, the access point typically be clear to send specific answers from 1 to 2. Right? So they realize the network is busy only when the access point is talking. That's when they figure it out. You know, they may also hear your microwave, but the simulator doesn't. The simulator doesn't have it. We could. Oh, is that right?
Yeah.
So have you guys ever heard the urban legend, maybe, about the Bell Northern Canada employee that was working on either Thanksgiving Day or Christmas Day? He was pulling a double holiday, so you get paid double time if you work on Sundays, and or if you work more than a certain number of hours. You get triple time if you work on particular holidays on a Sunday. So this guy was manning the central office building in like Manitoba or someplace like that. You can Google it, find it instantly, and went up on the roof to kind of relax a little bit. And there was a microwave tower up there with all the microwave transmitters, and we've looked at pictures of them in class and stuff like that before. And he sat up there long enough that he killed himself. He got cooked. And I mean, completely cooked. So when the next shift came in, they thought he'd brought turkey. So good luck figuring out if that's true or not. It's just plausible enough. But what is true is you will die if you stand in front of a microwave transmitter.
Really?
Absolutely. Yeah, totally. That's why they're up in the air. So like, yeah, they generate radiation that will disrupt your cellular structure. This is why the big ones.
Oh, I still have my
That's why they're shields, Faraday cages, but for microwave frequencies around microwave ovens. That's why they have that mesh because those holes are far enough apart that a wave cannot pass through one of those little openings.
What happens if you
You get cooked. It'll kill you.
So is it possible that it can be like that?
Yes, they can malfunction. You should never use a broken microwave. If the door doesn't fit cleanly, you should put it immediately in the trash. No, if there's not a light bulb. No, if there's not a light bulb, that's okay. Yeah. No, that part's okay. Just don't. So here's something else to worry you about. And I've actually had a very spirited debate at a bar for an hour with a transmission engineer. I told the bartender, who's a friend of mine at the spaghetti restaurant, that, I noticed he always wears his Bluetooth headset all the time. He just walks around with it, the blue light blinking and stuff like that. And I go, how many hours a day do you wear that? And he told me, and I said, if I could give you a little bit of advice, take it out. Yeah, stop, knock it off. Stop. And he goes, why? And he goes, because it runs on the same microwave frequencies as your microwave oven, 2.4 gigahertz. It does.
Yeah.
It's extremely low power, but saccharin is very unlikely to cause cancer unless you eat it in very small amounts for a long period of time. So are you willing to take that chance? You will never see me use a Bluetooth headset as a result. Nope. You can, just don't use them lots. Minimize it. Don't walk around. Don't use them as a fashion statement. That would be so. This guy told me I was completely full of crap. He designs transmission engineering systems. He designs the towers. He's not the technician. He's the engineer. And he said that is the biggest load of crap I've ever heard. So and game on. Game on. For an hour we had this debate. And I was dropping things on him like I was the senior technologist for the world's largest corporation in its career for 30 years for AT&T. I think I know a little bit more than nothing, which is what you're claiming. And so he goes, well then so it was like what are these? So this went on for an hour, and the people I went were like, oh my God, like he's like, they've done it. Why don't you guys go into the bathroom or something and like duke it out for a while? I'm like, no, we need to go into the classroom and duke it out. I need a marker, you know. So it was pretty funny. And I still don't know who's right. We both had really good arguments, solid convictions. His argument is it's so it will never amount to anything. Your cells regenerate fast enough on their own that, you know, even if you damage one, exactly. And I go, you know what? I'm not willing to irradiate my genes and accelerate the process of evolution because cancer is the natural process of evolution. It's just your cells trying to modify their genetic structure. And absolutely. You can accelerate that process by irradiating them or exposing them to chemicals, but all you're doing is increasing your odds you're going to get cancer. That's okay. It's not against your head. No, that's not going to. Yeah, I recommend wearing an aluminum foil hat in the shape of this, and I can receive FM radio and words from the CIA in one of my teeth as well. Right? So we had to deal with people like that once in a while at the phone company. Believe it or not, they would file complaints with the Public Utilities Commission, and you know, please God deliver me. Now, so you can have a big full-on nerd brawl if you get like deep enough in your field, and I really wished I'd kept in touch with the guy because I would love to. I mean, we could have figured it out together, probably a lot better than either one of us would independently, and we'd have a really good set of. We could have written a paper on it, like jerk. So he disappeared. So you know what that means, don't you? He was wrong. He was wrong. Yeah, I won exactly. Okay. Yeah, it's you know. Complete nonsense, but anyway. So I get arrogant. At least I know like I'm full of it, and I don't listen to myself any more than anybody else does. So what causes them to realize the network was busy? This is one because they heard the CTS come back from the coast. After one's first successful transmission and acknowledgement, right here, this acknowledgement, who still has data to send? Everyone. You agree? Everyone still has data sent. Okay, why doesn't Station 2 have a back off right here? That's one possible explanation. That's a good explanation. What's another explanation? It what? It didn't have anything to send while it was in. So as soon as it came out of nav mode, right then, somebody asked him to send something. He looked immediately. The network was not busy. So he sends it. That's another explanation. Absolutely. That's exactly what happened here. I clicked at exactly the time. Like, you know, what was the Steve Martin movie where he just couldn't give away his money? Every dumb thing he tried to do, it just worked out opposite and then made him richer, made him more successful. It was like The Fool or something like that. So, you know, I don't try to click there. I couldn't click there if I wanted to. It just by chance, yeah. Like the other one a minute ago. Like I've used this for years. I've never seen it do that before. Like, what's going on? So no gray bar. So I heard two possible explanations. One was it rolled a 0. And the other was it didn't have anything to send until the green spot right here. That it rolled a random number, enter the gray mode, but the number it rolled was 0. So you don't see anything there. 0 is valid. That's one of the ranges of numbers. It's always in the range. Okay. Ready for the next one? Even though Station 2 starts sending a request to send first, why do 1 and 3 continue on with what they were doing? 1 sends an RTS, 2 continues his gray bar, and he sends an RTS. Why didn't they stop? Exactly. And more importantly, the access point couldn't hear anything either. If he could put a stop to it. If he sends anything, everyone stops what they're doing if they can hear it. Now, you have to be listening to be able to hear the access point. So if you're talking, it's Juan Gabriel and the mosquito. You can't hear it. Right, so we'll see that happen. Yeah, so here's what can happen. You can send a request to send, and the access point will receive it. The access point will send you back a clear to send, but at exactly the same time, another host sends a request to send. So it interferes with everything. The access point wonders why you're not sending data because he sent you the clear to send. He can't hear the interference. One never got the clear to send, so he just ends up asking for it again because what arrived to him was garbage. And two, gets irritated because no one's answering his request to send. So he tries again. So you can clobber each other. So this can go on and on and on like this. So, but I think you guys are getting this. I think you're totally getting it. So even though 2 starts to send a request to send first, why do 1 and 3 continue? 1 continued because he overlapped 2. 3 continued because there was no clear to send to put a stop to it because this was received as garbage. Why doesn't 2 get a CTS back from his first request to send? We just said that because, yeah, 1 corrupts it. That's a good answer. 1 corrupts it. That's a decent way of saying it. 1 corrupts it. Once 3 sends his request to send, why do 1 and 2 stop their countdown timer shortly afterwards? Because the access point put a stop to it. He sent a clear to send. And it could have been because the access point made everybody stop by sending something. Maybe they heard him transmit something. And you'll notice they stopped at the beginning of the clear to send. They did not wait to figure out that this thing was a clear to send. You know, remember back in the other one, they would wait till they hear the whole RTS and then enter nav mode. They didn't wait at all. They just stopped what they were doing because they just saw the network was busy. That's all they cared about. The network is busy. They wait and they figure out it's clear to send, and then they enter nav mode after that. Okay. This is more of a philosophy question. It's the last one. So it's nothing to look at on the diagram. We've seen lots of crazy examples. You guys got really lucky. You saw some whopper examples. Yes. Tell me what you think it is. Once 3 is able to send his request to send, why does 1 and 2 stop? Why do they stop their countdown timers here? They didn't see the request. Look at what's going on here. Look at the vertical line. What's happening when they stop? The other one, the clear to send. The clear to send here. They see the access point talking, and they can hear the access point. So they just know the network's busy. So they just give up. They go, I missed my chance. I'm going to have to roll a random number later. But I'm not going to get to do it right now. Exactly. They can always hear the access point. So on the exam, what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you one of these diagrams. It won't be super complicated, but it's not going to be all hidden terminals or no hidden terminals. You bet it can be mixed. In this case, they didn't. Exactly. So how can you tell? How are you going to know whether one station can hear another? Yeah, so if you can hear the other guy, you turn red when he starts talking. Okay, so let me go back and ask you a question here. In this diagram, can station 2 hear station 1? No. Can station 3 hear station 1? Can station 2 hear station 3? How do you know? Where do you see proof that 2 can't hear 3? Show me. Tell me why can to me 2 can't hear 3. So start off with, you see proof here in this box.
Yeah. So if like 2 and 3, and 3, because 2, yeah, and 3.
So go back to the box I just drew on the right. Why not there?
No, that would be the proof of 1 and 3. I mean, it's the same. I don't know, because it's not bad when they're 30% from them.
So the only way you can know whether 2 can hear 3 is if one of them's talking and the other one hears it. Neither one of them's talking. How can you tell whether they can hear each other or not? Yeah, that's like asking me if I can see somebody else when both of our eyes are closed. Like, how would I know? Got to open my eyes first. Yep, so that's how you're going to tell. So it's a little subtle, right? Tiny bit tricky, but makes sense. Okay, I'm going to show you some Wireshark stuff, and if we get lucky, we'll have the Tuesday night experience. If we're unlucky, we'll have the Wednesday night experience. But first we have to answer this question, and then I think we need to take a break. But the question is, over time, if you let the system run for hours, and you have N hosts, and they each have a limitless amount of data to send, they're producing frames at about the same rate, some huge number M, like 1 million frames each. We've seen examples where one of the stations gets starved for a long time. He can't send anything. Other people are sending lots of packets, and he never gets to send anything. So is that going to even out over time? Is it going to balance out? Or do you think this is at risk of being inherently very unfair? Yeah. So how do you think the IEEE would permit the design to operate? Fairly or not? From everything you've learned about the way Internet protocols work, what would you guess? You know, it's sort of innate. And if you design something that's not, you're going to get squeezed to death. Your standard's not going to make it. However, you can absolutely choose to manage your network however you like. And a couple of good examples are you can have hidden SSIDs that never broadcast and will never show up in your list. So you know that thing that says join other network and you manually type the stuff in? That's for those networks. So if you have an administrative network that you don't want everybody trying to join, just don't broadcast the ID. Just tell the people that need to know. The other thing you can do is restrict people that have to have a MAC address on a list that's been pre-approved. We used to have to do that at universities. You had to register your device. So it used to have to happen at hospitals. There's really interesting history about how we sort of broke CIOs down, just kind of ground them into dust. And it was in medical schools where it happened first, which is kind of an interesting side story. I've told too many already today. And the other thing you can do is give people priority. So a couple of years ago, Tim Cook and John Chambers, Tim, the CEO of Apple, and John, the then CEO of Cisco, announced at our annual sales meeting that we were going to design technology where if Apple devices marked priority bits in Wi-Fi frames, we would act upon it at our routers and our Wi-Fi hotspots if the network manager wanted to. So if you're at an airport and the network is completely saturated, you can choose to let FaceTime calls get priority because they're delay sensitive and push everything else back. So you can choose to do something like that if you want. But generally, it's fair. Well, they want it to stay that way. They don't want anybody walking around with Huawei or Motorola or anything else. So that's why they did it. Yeah, I mean, the two biggest guys in the industry got together and made that deal. Okay, I'm going to take a break, and then when we come back, I'm going to show you Wireshark, and then we got to switch back over to wired Ethernet because the section last night scared me to death because I thought it was going to be like a little review and didn't have any idea how to answer the questions. So I got to figure out where you guys are to make sure if I give you a collision diagram and ask you to draw me a sin here, B sin here, how long do you need to listen, that you can draw it out. I'm not going to kill you with math problems. So here's the deal. If you'll let me give you a third homework over the weekend with just a handful of problems and make it due on Sunday night, and I give you the solutions, then I'll make the exam easy. So I want you to do the work. When you have the time to do the work, you have a chat group to compare answers. You guys figure it out. I want you to know how to do the problems on the homeworks. I want you to get them right. I don't care if somebody shows it to you, but you've got to internalize it. You've got to learn how to do it, because that's all I'm going to look for on the exam. Do you know how to tackle this problem? If you don't get the right mileage, but you use the right formula, that's worth most of the points to me. That's what I'm looking for. You'll always have a calculator and Excel and all that, but what you won't have is an idea of how to tackle the problem. So that's what I got to get across to you in this course. Okay, so it's 7:43. Why don't we come back? You want to come back at 8? At 20? Okay, so let's take a 15-minute break. I'll pause the recording, and that smells really good. Did you get a food box?
No, I got it over here.
Oh, okay. Where over at
No, here. I just told him like we gotta go to the.
Not at food box?
No, she got that like Uber Eats.
Oh, Uber Eats. Oh, I thought you said like it's something else Eats. I didn't hear it. Oh, that's cool. Okay. Okay, we're going to take a peek at Wireshark and see if we can spot some evidence on stuff. So let me first make sure I still have Wi-Fi turned on, which I do. And I'm going to close this window, and I'm going to open up Wi-Fi and just capture packets for a second or two. Yesterday when I did this, it was like 1 million packets. And so it was 5,500 packets in like 2.5 seconds. Can you believe that? That's crazy. So one of the things I did to show this type of detail, which you may notice looks very different than the stuff you normally see. Normally, you don't see 802.11. Normally, you see TCP and UDP and HTTP and TLS, higher level protocols. But what I've done that your version of Wireshark may or may not do is, pardon me? Exactly. I go into capture options and turn on monitor mode, which is available on any 802.11 device if your OS will allow you to do that. So that changes what it looks like. If I just turn that off, all I have to do is just turn it off, and it'll capture differently. So I can turn it off and go back, and here we are, back to UDP and TCP and all the user data. But I want to see clear to sends and request to sends. I want to see all that stuff. So I did it for a second and a half that time, 1.7 seconds, and got 5,000 packets. It's just crazy. So do you see in here, request to send, clear to send, another one here, request to send, a beacon frame, that's when the SSID is advertising itself. So we can sort by, say, packet length, and go up to some of the smallest packets, and here they are. Clear to sends and acknowledgments are both the same size. So that's kind of interesting. So I want to do actually a little more than that. So I want to sort now by info, because I just want to count the clear to sends. So there's about 25 per page here, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 30, 40, 50, 60, 70 pages. 77 pages of clear to sends. All right, what about request to sends? Come down here. Here we go. Request to send. So we'll get that and we'll count how many pages are here. How many was it for the other? 70? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. 30, 40, 50, 60, close. 67, 10 less. Why? Why would you send more clear to sends than you had requests? How does that make sense? That's one, but they still got a clear to send back, so it couldn't have been too corrupted. It could be the example you asked about, where you've got two sending at the same time, but one of them is so much further away that the access point still hears the other one. That could be. There's a much simpler explanation. Yeah, that's absolutely the case. We're only looking at the ones my computer can see. So my computer can see more clear to sends than it can see request to sends. How does that make sense?
It cannot see all of the devices that are sending requests, but it can see all of the clear to send because it can always see the time.
That's exactly why. So you will normally see more clear to sends than you are request to sends. Yeah, they're all hidden from me, right? Now, unfortunately, what happened last night was we saw exactly the opposite. We saw tons of request to sends more than we saw clear to sends. No.
¿No?
¿No es puro examen? Oh, sí, eso es verdad. Oh, no. Sí, pero es la primera parte de clase. Si quieres, puedes tomar el examen y salir. So, pues dice él, espere. If he's not going to wait for you for an exam, tell him. Never going to work. I'm telling you now. You gotta put your foot down. Yeah, so come to another day if that happens. Okay, talk to me. I'm not going to break up anyone's relationship. Yeah, exactly. That's exactly right. No, I'm serious.
Valentine's present.
Yeah, that's a weird Valentine's present. But yes, I can do the exam in French if you'd prefer. Vous voudrez? Oh, I thought you said French. Something. Yes, there we go. Yeah, that's true. Okay, so that was kind of fun. Now, the last thing I need to show you guys is something you're going to get as a problem of the weekend and on the test. And I need to just know that you're not going to bomb it. So the class last night freaked me out a little bit. Editor de capa. There it is. Okay, buddy. Why did it go away? I must have closed it, obviously. All right. I can tell you how sometimes simple little things in my life change the outlook I have. One of them was discovering that I no longer have to try to draw graph paper. I can just go and steal it and paste it on my computer. This was like a big deal for me because I had tried for years to draw like with lines in PowerPoint and in Photoshop. I tried scanning the stuff in. Nothing worked. So now I figured it out. So what I got to do is draw this down a little bit. In fact, I think I need more than this. All right. Why didn't I grab the whole width? Woo! Don't have to apologize. Everybody can see. Okay. They'll give him a break. Why are these not lining up? Yeah, that's okay. All right, so what we're going to do is draw a network. So I'm going to give you guys a network diagram. Hopefully it won't line up as badly as this one does. And let's assume the network ends over here where D is. All right, so these are evenly spaced devices. And what I basically want to know is how long do I have to transmit? That's one question I want to ask you guys. No, it doesn't. You have to assume it's always going to do that when you make the standard. So let's say A is here, B is here, C is here, and D is here. Those are more or less, and that's the end of the network. That's more or less evenly spaced, I think. So how would you go about answering the question? How long do you need to transmit? Which is the same thing as asking what's the minimum frame size. So how would you go about answering that? So tell me what to draw.
Diagonal line from A to B.
Okay. I'm not going to pick a very steep slope. I hope that's okay. Because I need lots of room on this. Okay? And then what happens when I just about arrive at D? Yeah, D starts to send something back. So the collision's going to happen, you know, basically right in this area. But it's so we can make it so close to D that it's essentially at D. We know technically it can't be, because as soon as D starts getting a signal, he will not send anything. He will not send anything. But we can get it so close that it's basically the same. So just like he says, go back in the other direction, and if I get the slope right, I think it's 1, 2, 3. That looks right. Yeah. So that's the diagram. So now use it to tell me how long I have to transmit. How does this answer that question? So how far do I transmit down to here? How far down this graph am I going to continue to transmit? Down to this? Down to this line. That's exactly right. So if you stop listening before this, you'll never hear it. Remember what I said at the beginning of class. What you're really listening for in a collision is yourself. That's all you know what's supposed to be sent. You have no idea what other people are doing. You know exactly what you're doing. You know the signal you're trying to, so you will listen to it at the same time. You do the same thing when you're talking. That's why when you wear headphones, people tell you, why are you talking so loud? Because you can't hear yourself anymore. So this is how we know we're talking. You don't really have to have somebody interrupt you. Like if you lose your voice, you can hear it. You know something's wrong. No one's interfering with you. You're just not transmitting clearly. So that's what we need. So we have to be transmitting, and it has to be disrupted, or we won't know something's going wrong. Yes? No, D started to send something just a moment before we got the collision happened right here, but too late. There's a collision. So this new waveform that's a combination of D's first bit and A's first bit is going to start heading back in this direction. And it's not going to arrive, and therefore it's not going to have any chance to be heard by me until this time right here. And so what arrives, what arrives is a combination of the A and the D signal, but it only happens for a few bits, and D receives a copy of it and stops sending. But it's enough. It's enough. Something's coming back, and it's going to interfere with me, and I'm going to hear it. It's like I'm giving a speech, and I'm almost done with the speech, and somebody comes up and starts yelling in my ear. You'll notice that, right? So that's basically what's going on. It doesn't matter what they're saying. You just recognize that it's not what you thought you were supposed to be hearing. Yeah, it's exactly what it is. Worst case scenario. Right? So if this is the longest network we could have, then this is the minimum packet size right here. If I told you this network was only half the length that the standard permitted, then how long would my minimum packet size be? So what would I do to this? If this is half the length, it means I could double the length of this network. So there's going to be E over here off the screen on the right. And yeah. I obviously did, because 3 of you thought I said the same thing, so I obviously said it wrong. So if I told you that this wire was only 1/2 the distance that the standard allowed, and the one was twice as long, how would that change your minimum packet size? It would double it, same ratio. Double it, exactly. Why 3 here? I just drew it that way. Just that slope. because I didn't want to draw down here and I ran out of graph paper. I can learn a little bit. Okay, what if I told you I doubled the transmission rate of this network? So it went from 10 megabits per second to 20 megabits per second. What's going to change? What does the slope represent? But why would the slope change if I change the transmission rate? How many megabits per second? So I propose a different answer. Excuse me. If I propose if I can transmit bits twice as fast, I'll finish sending this packet twice as quickly. That's it. The bits that get on here are still going to travel the same number of meters per second. Nothing will ever change that. God said that. So changing my transmission rate isn't going to cause copper to vibrate faster. So the slope shouldn't change. Because if it takes this long to get to here, just because I put another one even closer behind it than before, isn't going to make that one go faster. It's still going to take the same amount of speed to get there. So be careful. It's not going to change your slope. It'll change the time it takes before you finish sending the packet. So what do you need to do to the minimum packet size? I'm going to take half as long to send the one that you told me before I needed. Let's say this was 100 bits before. Now I can send 100 bits right here, just between here and here. So my slope's not changing. The length of the cable's not changing. I still need to listen down here, right? So what needs to happen to my packet size? Or at least, yeah, you can fill it up with zeros, but how much zeros? How much bigger or smaller does the new packet need to be than the old one? Yeah, so let's say it was 1 megabit per second, and I get an upgrade. I don't know if I can finish. This has gone on for like 3 weeks. Now I'm at 2 megabits per second. So it takes half as long to send a packet. So instead of taking 30 milliseconds, exactly, now it takes 15. But my slope didn't change, and my network didn't change. I still need to listen for 30 milliseconds. What am I going to do? Again, double. Yeah, double. So your minimum packet size is going to go from 100 to 200. All right, does that make sense? Kind of. What part's only kind of? Because, okay, the reason why I doubled the size of the frame is because I was able to send it in half the time. The standard didn't change. Now, the standard really will change. If you change the speed of your network, the standard will change the length of the cable. They will do that. But the important part here was I didn't change either of those things. So you know that the length of the cable is not something you could make different. You know the slope you can't make different. You can never change that. What's left? The size of the packet. So the only thing remaining, if I tell you I'm going to transmit it in half the time, then the only thing you can change to compensate for it is the size of the packet. What if I told you I'm going to change the transmission rate, but I'm going to insist that the packet size remain the same? What variables are left that you could change? Yeah, so the 4 variables are cable length, packet size, propagation speed, and transmission rate, megabits per second. Those are the 4 variables you've got to deal with. So are any of these ones that are just like totally off limits forever? There's one. Propagation speed. Can't change that. That one's, yeah, that's the slope. That one's off limits. That's the speed of light, roughly. A little less. So if it just becomes a triangle at that point. What I did a minute ago was I told you, you increase this, and this stayed the same. What do you have to change to compensate? The size of the packet. You're going to have to figure out whether it goes up or down, but you know which one it is. Okay? So let me change the problem. I tell you I'm going to increase the transmission rate, but I'm not going to let you change the packet size. Increase or decrease? So the only one you're going to change is this one. You just got to figure out which way you need to change it. All right, makes sense? So what if I tell you I'm going to have a network where I'm going to cut all cable lengths in half. I'm going to reduce the standard to half the size it was before. We're going to transmit at the same rate we always have, but these long cables aren't working on campus. So I'm going to set a new rule. We're only going to make the cables half as long. We're going to make it a standard. The only variable left that you can change is the size. So if I cut the length of the cable in half, I'm basically chopping it in half here, and I'm telling you the rate is the same. So I'm going to redraw my slope. Whoops. I'm going to redraw my slope here. I don't have as far to go. If I'm riding my bicycle at the same rate and I leave the garage at the same place, I can ride to the end of the block now, not 2 blocks, but just 1 block and come back sooner in half the time, right? That makes sense. Think about riding bikes. That's a decent analogy. So if I want to make sure I hear all the collisions, I don't have to listen down here anymore. Because there's never going to be a collision that takes that long. The longest a collision is going to take now is this one. Because I've cut off my network. It stops here. So I can make my minimum packet size half the size it was before. All right, you guys seem to get this much better. So my conclusion is I never taught the Wednesday class this stuff. I feel sometimes I get really nervous. Like if we end really early and I'm like, okay, what did I forget? And like, what did I not cover? So obviously one of the weeks I just didn't show up on collision day or something. I don't know what the deal was, but I did with you guys. We've talked about this before. It's pretty clear. So I'll give you some practice problems to deal with on this. But yes, exactly. The longer you have to go, the bigger the packet's going to have to be. Because the longer you go, the longer you have to listen. And the time you listen is directly related to the size of the packet. Exactly. Yeah. You're eavesdropping on the network long enough to hear what's coming from the other end, basically. Okay, we good? All right, guys. That's all we got. Yes, sir. Oh, that was that one? 1968, Mexico City? Got it. Yeah. Yes. How many meters per second signals can travel across cable? It's a fixed constant, 2.5 to 68 meters per second. It'll never change. It's actually different numbers for different media, but it never changes. So that's not something you can do something with. So unless I tell you that it's changing, you should assume that never changes. Yeah, if the network gets bigger, the packet has to get bigger. If the network gets bigger, the time you transmit has to get bigger. If you speed up how quickly you can put the packet on the wire, then you need to put a bigger packet on the wire to take up the same amount of time. Yes. As long as transmission speed's constant. Yes. You can balance it out. You just got to balance it. See you. Bye. Thank you very much. Longer. If you speed up the rate that you send it, you're going to have the packet on the wire and be done sooner. It's like eating twice as fast. You're going to finish dinner sooner, so you better give me more food to eat. If you want me to still be there in 5 minutes when the dog comes back, You better give me more food to eat. Sí, exactamente. Si come más rápidamente, debes darme más comida. Sí. So if you had a brother growing up that ate like super fast, nobody could get up until mom was done, they ate twice as much food as everyone else, right? That's the way it works. It's like, I've always eaten like a rocket, and I never had brothers and sisters. Like, why? Who was I scared of? I mean, kids with brothers, I get it. Like, if you don't eat it, your brother's going to come over and steal your food, right?
Yeah, I had a brother.
So,
We both are like that.
yeah, it's pretty funny.
Oh, I think I get it now. Like, it's more of a, like, inverse improvement.
Yeah.
So, if we know that we cannot change the speed,
Yeah.
so if you spend faster, you know that you must have eaten.
You're eating the food faster.
Like,
If you spend faster, but you still finish at the same time, you should eat more food.
yeah.
Exactly.
That's what's confusing me. That it's like.
Yeah, so I'm glad you
related
stuck
to
around.
the propagation speed.
Yeah, so the standards have to balance these things out. All right, thank you very much, guys. Hi, Carlos, David, Jorge. 1, 2, 3, 3, 1, 5. Que tenga buen día. Buenas noches.